All right, well, thank you everybody for coming. This is File Management for Beginners. My name is Jordan Ardick. I have been a member of Computer-Aided Technology located in Buffalo Grove, Illinois for about a year now. They hired me to do teaching and tech support and also to come to SolidWorks World and give you all a presentation. So let's get on with it. Anyway, just to start off for you guys, I have a quick a list of the agenda we're going to go over. I'm going to start with my background, why I'm up here qualified to give you guys a presentation on file management, sort of my brief career history. Second, I'm going to talk about the challenges of file management. So I have a list of the challenges that I'll go over during the presentation and then sort of break down the challenges one by one and then give you guys some examples of the tools that I've used in the past to sort of handle these challenges. After that, during that time, we're also going to discuss best practices for file management. And then I also have, right at the end, I'm going to discuss a SolidWorks tool. It's not really directly related to file management, but it can help you with your file management tasks. And then at the very end, we're going to have a brief discussion about the advantages of PDM software. You know, we're going to go over the long explanation of all the tools you can do manually, and then we'll talk about how PDM can ramp you guys up, take care of all that stuff for you, and make your lives easier, give you a competitive advantage. So let's get into it. Start off my background. I have a degree in industrial design from Arizona State University. Very simple. You just need to track about 50 to 100 parts. There's not much file management to being a student. I just create one folder per class, and then I organize those folders by semester. Okay. Moving on, after college, I got into a company in Arizona called Universal Laser Systems. They hired me to do document control, drafting, and mechanical engineering. And a lot of the time I was there, I was dealing with the file management system that they had set up. So luckily for me, I didn't have to come up with one from scratch, but I did have to use what they had implemented, and that gave me some great tips that I can give to you guys today. So we had to track about 20,000 parts. We had a part numbering system in place that we had organized by category. We had a couple databases. We had one database to manage our MRP, and then we had another one for our engineering database. And there were roughly 5 to 6 people who had to use our SolidWorks files at the same time, 5 or 6 engineers. So we were concerned with a multi-user environment, and we were sharing data over a server. All right, so here is my challenges. So let me ask you guys, who in the room is familiar with the TV show How I Met Your Mother? Anybody? A couple of you? So I did this presentation last week. Not a single engineer in that room had any idea what How I Met Your Mother is. So anyway, challenge accepted is the How I Met Your Mother meme. It's something that Barney says. So we're going to look at some challenges. Okay, so first off, storing, backing up data. You need to be able to have some kind of a system in place to keep your files. Maybe that system needs to give other people access to files. Part number tracking. You're going to create a part number system that makes it easier for you to understand later on where you keep your parts, have them a nice organizational system. We're going to worry about revision history. When you create a revision for a part file, does that affect the assembly the part lives in? Is it only going to affect the part? Backwards forward compatibility. Sharing data can be a challenge. Again, you got to worry about things like security. Giving people the access that they need. Keeping track of files. This kind of goes hand in hand with part number tracking. I guess the part number tracking section of this is how do you come up with a part number? And the keeping track of files is after you have parts, how do you find them in your system later? All right, and then the last one up here is BOM accuracy. How do we use SolidWorks to help us create bills of materials that are accurate and we can use in our process? So let's dive into storage. Okay, so major challenges here with storage. Okay, I want everybody in this room to protect your data in some way. I've lived through a hard drive crash where I've lost thousands of pictures. Your intellectual property, your SolidWorks part files, they're all just as important as my pictures that I lost. So I want you to protect them. All right, we want to protect from hard drive crashes. We want to protect from theft. Maybe now you keep all your files on a laptop. If someone takes that laptop, well, you're out of luck. So damage, anything that could cause a loss of data, we want to keep that from happening. And the other part of storage is how much storage space is necessary. Am I working with a small library of parts? Am I working with a large library of parts? So I'm going to make sure that we think about these things before we get into the actual storage part. So I'm going to go into best practices for this. First one is have a second hard drive. Okay, the main thing I want you guys to get out of that is have your data in 2 separate locations. You want to have data that you can work from easily, so your main hard drive, and then you want to have a secondary hard drive, external hard drive, a second drive within your tower that is a backup. So if one of those 2 drives fails, you have a backup drive. Okay, so 2 physical drives, very important. Just for the sake of argument about speed, if you have your first hard drive as an SSD, SolidWorks loves SSDs. Very fast to open files, makes it much easier to work with. So all your other hard drives, you don't need to spend the extra money and get an SSD. You can just get a 7200 RPM drive or something less expensive. All right, advantage of an external hard drive, you can keep it in a separate location. You could take it home with you. You could keep it in your car. You could, have it separate from your main computer system, so that protects you from the theft portion of it, or the fire or damage or what have you. If something physically happens to your drive, well, you have a backup in a separate location. Another advantage to having multiple hard drives is you could set up a RAID array, RAID 0 or RAID 1. Actually, I think it's RAID 5. I apologize. RAID 0 for speed, so you have 2 hard drives that are getting written to at the exact same time. So half your data goes on one, half your data goes on the other. That will speed up your computer system. And then you could also have a RAID where it's a backup. So both hard drives get the exact same information. And if one of your hard drives fails, you can replace it with another hard drive. So backup. And another thing we used to do at my company is our entire SolidWorks library, after we zipped it up, was less than 4.7 gigabytes. So at that date and time, we could zip all that together, burn it to a DVD, and then we had a DVD archive that we could keep for that particular day. All right, we didn't do it every day. We did it about once every 6 months, just as a stopgap. But we also had some other things into effect, but that is one thing that you could do. Okay, another way to store files that's become very popular now is the cloud. Great advantage of the cloud is you can access your files from any computer that has an internet connection. It's also a disadvantage. If you don't have internet, you're not going to be able to get the files that you want. Another nice part about cloud storage is you start off not knowing exactly how much storage you need. You get a gigabyte of storage. You pay on a monthly basis. Now I need more than a gigabyte. Well, you just buy more. So there's no extra physical hard drives that you have to buy. You just pay a monthly fee for however much storage that you need. Okay, so again, it is internet dependent. Your connection speed is a big factor here. So if you're working on a DSL or you don't have a nice cable modem internet, that can affect your ability to store files. The one major thing I want to mention about this is you don't want to work on your files directly from the cloud. All right, it takes a very long time to pass that information back and forth over the internet. You want to get a copy, work on it locally, and then use the cloud as your storage. Okay. Places that you can get cloud storage, Amazon, Google, Apple Macintosh, they all have cloud services that you can use. Okay, as you guys grow and get bigger, another option that most companies do is they have some sort of server. So you have a server that's in a room, and if you need to increase your storage, you just throw some more hard drives on it. Your server can have automatic backup software on it. Just the major things that a lot of companies do. And you can also access it through VPN. So you could use the internet to sort of sign into your server and access the data set from there. So, all right. A really cool thing that SolidWorks parts, drawings, and assemblies have is what's known as the design binder. This is located in your feature tree. I'm not sure a lot of people are aware of this, but every single design binder has a design journal document in it. So if you're, just another way to store something, if you're working on a part file and you've made some changes, you need to share it with someone, well, you can write down in the design journal all the changes that you made. You can add revision stuff. And it's not just limited to this document. You can store any type of file that you like. You can do PDFs, you can do whatever, and the other cool part is that it's stored inside the part document. So So you don't actually have to give them, it's not like a pack and go where you're packing up all the parts together. It stores it within the PRT file. So the disadvantage is that your PRT files can get rather large depending on what you save to it, but you can attach files in this way. Okay? And again, parts, assemblies, or drawings all have the design binder. Okay? So that's a little bit about storage. I'll get into backup. So we have storage locations now. We have to worry about actually backing up the files. A really great free backup software is called Carbonite. You can set up a schedule. It will say, okay, every day at 5 o'clock, I want hard drive A to copy all the files that have changed to hard drive B. So it takes you out of the equation, so to speak. There are also automatic external hard drives you can purchase. Drobo and PogoPlug are great examples of this. They also use a software package that will automatically, at the end of the day, you can schedule it. You can say once a month. You can say whenever you like. It will look for files that have changed and back them up for you. Okay. I also want to go over some of the SolidWorks backup and recovery settings that are built right into the options. So if you go into the SolidWorks options, you're going to see things like the auto recover. Auto recover, what that does for you is that it creates a copy of your file at the moment that you're working on it. And then if you get a hard drive crash, or not a hard drive crash, a SolidWorks crash, which nobody in this room has had a SolidWorks crash, right? No one? Yeah, yes. Yes, it does happen. So there is an auto recover. You can have that check marked, and SolidWorks will do a backup for you. You can also do a backup for every time you do a save. So let's say I have my part in version A, and then I make a save to it. And with this backup option checked, I still have A saved, right? So every time I save, depending on how many number of backups I can have my last 5 saves all there. I can go back in time sort of and open up copies of it. So this is another a setting that's in the SolidWorks options. You can say the backup folder you want to put them in. You can say how often you'd like to have them removed. You know, another big thing about file management is you don't want to keep data you don't need. So SolidWorks will delete files for you after a certain period of time. And then down at the bottom, the save notification talks about how often that little pop-up box comes up in the bottom right-hand corner. So you do have the option to turn it off, but I know I've used it. I say, oh crap, 20 minutes, I better save again. So nice to have there. All right, so that's sort of the backup stuff to go with storage. All right, so next challenge, part number tracking. So any infant company has to be concerned with how to create part numbers, how to structure them, how many digits am I going to need, pretty much pertains to how many part numbers am I going to need. And we want to eliminate duplicates. We don't want to have the same part number used. Okay. So at my company, Universal Laser Systems, where I worked at before here, we tracked all of our part numbers with an Excel spreadsheet. So on the very first page of the spreadsheet was a list of all the categories. So we had things like top level assemblies. We had if it was a machine part, if it was a purchase part, if it was sheet metal. You know, we separated all this out into categories that made sense for us. Obviously every company is different, but we did think about that. You can actually kind of see, this is the part numbering system that we used I have down at the bottom. I'll talk about that in just a second. So on page 1 of the Excel spreadsheet had a list of all the categories, and then they were hyperlinked to additional pages, and we had I think 300 or 400 pages of categories that you just go to that category page and it told you what the last part number created was. So I need a new part number, I fill in a description on that line, and then now I have a part number and that's saved where everybody can get at it and we don't create duplicates. So we sort of used Excel for that. We also had a really cool folder structure. It's set up the exact same way. Folders for top level, so 100s, then a folder for all the things that were 100 level, categories in there, and then all of our SolidWorks parts lived in that archive. And the drawings were there, assemblies were there. Use the folders to help you find things later. Okay, so just to go over the part numbering scheme with you guys. The first one was the category, which I mentioned. Then the actual number, so which number in the list of category was in there. We also had an identifier for whether the part was expensed because we were concerned with our MRP software, anything that was less than $1, we didn't want to track it. So we put expensed, we put E there to say don't track this in our system. We also had multiple colors that we had of our product line, so red, blue, yellow, and we just put a single digit number there to say what color that part was, because you could have the exact same shape in 2 different color schemes, or 5 different color schemes, or whatever you may have. And then finally, we had the revision in our part number tracking, which has its advantages and disadvantages. We pretty much did that because it was getting too hard to keep track without the part number when we switched to our new software. I think I talk a little bit more about that on an upcoming slide. So, okay, so that was part number tracking. Now we're on to revision history. So we're concerned with creating an archive of data. So we want to know assembly revision B, what parts were inside of that assembly. So I have this great diagram that one of my coworkers gave me down at the bottom that sort of shows you, all right, I started with one assembly. It had 4 parts in it. Now I've made a change to some of those parts, which creates a new assembly because it's not backwards forwards compatible. And then I go on to create another one, which has a brand new part in it, and maybe I've revved some other ones. So how do we keep track of this? You know, it can get really complicated really fast. PDM does it really great. I sort of have a way that'll work, but not quite as wonderful. Okay, and then number of revisions per part number. Is a single letter going to be enough? Is 26 revisions enough? Do you need 2? So just something to think about when you're creating your part number as well. All right. So the way we handled it is we created e-drawings. We had our SolidWorks drawing file was the sort of the one we worked on, so if we ever needed to make changes, but the e-drawing was the master. So if we needed to order a part for sending out to our vendor, we sent them an e-drawing only. We would not send them a SolidWorks drawing unless it was a sheet metal person who wanted the DXF so he could cut the parts out. But so you have e-drawing, which archives you at that particular revision, and then when you replace it, then you take that e-drawing and you put it into an archive folder, right? And then you have a new e-drawing that's your current whatever revision you're at. So you can do this for parts, you can do it for assemblies. So if inside your assembly you have a bill of materials that lists all your parts and what revision they were at the time, you can do that too. All right, so separate archive folder. The other thing we did is we use an Access database to track this, help us create new numbers and see what the part numbers were at, but I'm not going to get too detailed into that. And no, the Access database is Microsoft Access is a software that can use a SQL database. So we had our own user interface on top of Access that would give us a drop down of part numbers and it'd show you BOMs. It was pretty rudimentary, but it was a way to handle it. So, okay, and then so to get back to, do you want to have your revision letter in the part number or not? Okay, the advantage is that every part number with a revision in it, you're not going to get them confused because you know it'll say A or B or C at the end of it. The disadvantage is now every time I create a revision, now I've created a new part number. So depending on your system that you're working with, your MRP system, that may be more or less difficult. So, okay, so revision history. All right, so on to the next challenge, sharing data. You want to be able to give access to multiple users, send your information out to clients and vendors, and we're also concerned with security. We don't want anybody to get their hands on their intellectual property. I will save questions for the end. Okay. All right. Okay, so multi-user environment. This is a very cool option that is inside of SolidWorks. If you go into, again, the options menu, you can turn on multi-user environment. The option down here, this is what it looks like. And what that allows you to do is you can make files read-only, or you can get write access for a file that was read-only. So let's say I'm working on a file, or I'm working on an assembly, and my coworker comes up to me and says, all right, I need one of the parts that's inside of your assembly. Okay, well, easy. I'll just right-click on that part. I will say, make read-only, that I no longer have control over it. He can get it from, if it's on a server location, he can go in there, he can say get write access, and now he has control of that file. He can make changes to it and does not disrupt the assembly that I'm working in. So again, you have to have multi-user environment enabled and the shortcut menu to get the make read only and get write access. Okay. The biggest downfall of this is, let's say a user retains ownership and then he walks away from his computer and now you need that file. Well, you have to wait till he gets back to his computer, or you need to have an administrator kick him out of the file, so to speak, in order to gain control. So just beware of that when you're using this functionality. Okay, great ways to distribute files. I talked about e-drawings. You can save a e-drawing out. They're very lightweight in comparison to SolidWorks documents. Easy to email. You could create a detached drawing. A detached drawing is a SolidWorks drawing that does not require the part file or the assembly. So you have a guy who is your drafter. He needs to put dimensions on your drawing. You can send him a detached drawing and he can dimension it up. All he needs is the drawing. And then when he's finished, he can send it back to you and you can convert it back to a regular drawing after that. Anybody who's worked with assemblies know that probably the best way to distribute assemblies is to use pack and go. What this does is you open up the main assembly file, and in the pack and go dialog you can specify I want every single part that goes with the assembly. I can say, all right, I want all the simulation data that goes with it. I want every drawing file that goes with it. So obviously it depends on who you want to send it to, but pack and go is very important for sending out assemblies, because you can't just send the assembly file. If you just send an assembly file, it's going to be blank when they try to open it. You need to have every part that goes inside of that assembly. I briefly touched on VPN access. You can use your internet connection to log into your server, so remotely, if you need to access files. Dropbox is a new one that was released recently. Actually, every single one of these computers in these demonstration rooms have Dropbox. That's how I was able to get my presentation onto this computer. So what Dropbox is a free service. They give you 2.5 gigabytes of storage space for free, sort of like the cloud. But the really cool part is that on your computer, you have a folder, and that folder gets synced back and forth. So if you make changes in the folder, it will change what's on the internet in your Dropbox in the cloud. All right, and then FTP, file transfer protocol, another way to distribute files. Okay, next challenge, keeping track of files. We want to make sure that we do not have multiple copies of files in multiple locations. Causes all kind of havoc with SolidWorks. It can also be a problem if you have two files that have the same name. So if I have an assembly open that has a part in it that's named top, so I didn't take the time to put in my part number, I just labeled it top or bottom. And then I open up another file that is the top or the bottom piece. Well, whatever's in read-only memory at the time, that's the only part I'm going to get open. So I want to make sure that you keep your files named separately. And another challenge is losing references of parts in an assembly. So I'll talk about that a little bit as well. Okay, so create a folder structure. It will help you organize files. Do not reuse file names. I just mentioned why that's important. And okay, saved part awareness, single or multi-user. I just added this in, and I think there's a reason why. Oh, okay, save part awareness. This is what this means. If you're saving your SolidWorks library to a certain area on your computer, make sure that everybody in your company knows. Okay, we don't want person A and person B to have different file sets on their computer. We want everyone saving in the same location. So make sure that there is awareness throughout the company where your storage locations are at. Okay, that's what I meant by that. Okay, inside of every copy of SolidWorks is SolidWorks Explorer. This has some very cool functionality. It will tell you things like references of parts. So if I need to know, if I have an assembly and I need to know all the parts that are in that assembly and where they're located at, I can use SolidWorks Explorer. If I need to see what assemblies a part is located in, I can use where used. All right, so this is a functionality part of SolidWorks Explorer. Also a great thing about SolidWorks Explorer is moving files. So when you have an assembly and it has reference files inside of it, you can't just move them to different folders. You need to tell SolidWorks that you're moving them. So this is, whenever you right click on a file, you can kind of see, I've right clicked and it's popped up this menu that I have in the bottom corner. There's move. You can rename parts using this dialog. So again, when it comes up, it says, all right, I have this part file. I can move it to any folder you like, and I can change it in any assembly that you like. So it's a very important dialog, the move, rename, or replace functionality. You can also do searching with SolidWorks Explorer, and you can also add tags to parts. So there's this field, I'm pointing at it over here, right here, tags. So I can add any kind of information I want for a part file that gets tagged, and that information is searchable. So I'll show over here to the heart pointer right here, tags. Okay, just lets you put a tag on your SolidWorks parts or assemblies or drawings. Okay. Another way to help you out with assemblies is inside of SolidWorks. The feature tree filter. This is really cool. At the top of every feature tree is this filter here. Right? I've typed in tank. So when I type in tank, or most people, they use it for part numbers, I can type in a part number, it's going to filter only what I've typed in. Okay, so in my view window, I'll only be able to see that part in the assembly, and it will only be, that's the only thing you'll see in the feature tree, things that match up with that filter. All right, there's also assembly visualization. This will give you sort of a list, again, of all the parts that are inside of your assembly. You can get this out of the assembly tab on the command manager. You can sort by things like mass, if you want to see where all the hardware is at, because usually hardware is a lot less mass. And then it also color codes your assembly. So you see the ribbon on the left there. The parts that are the heaviest would be in red, and then parts that are not as heavy, obviously, in blue. So, and then also file references under the file menu inside of SolidWorks. You can go file references, and that will give you lists of every single part that's part of that assembly and where they're located at. So, just another way to help you keep track of your assembly files. All right. Next challenge is BOM accuracy. We want to make sure that the bills of materials we create inside of SolidWorks match the bill of materials that you intend them to be. Make sure they match your any kind of software package you may be using to help you track that. What type of BOM should you use? You know, there's a couple different types of BOMs, so you may not know exactly which one you want to use to have it match exactly. And then also, at what point should I be creating a subassembly? Is it going to match the way it's being built? Do I need it to match my assembly drawings? So just things you guys need to think about as you're working on this stuff. So here's my example of what the three different bills of materials work. I have the top level, which will show one item for every subassembly and one item for every part. So anything that's within a subassembly will not come up with a top level BOM. Parts only BOM will not show any subassemblies, it will only show parts. And then the last one, an indented BOM, will show all of them, but the reason I have the assembly circles is because it does not get a balloon, it just shows up in your bill of materials. So it just identifies that as a subassembly. And you can create a bill of material in an assembly as well as a drawing. So if you need to pull up that BOM while you're working in the assembly, you can sort of paste in it as an annotation. It's just something to keep aware of. The main way that we like to create our bills of materials in SolidWorks is with custom properties. Okay, so a custom property can be a lot of things. It can be a description of your part. It can be a part number. It can be the revision. You can say who drew this part, when did they draw it. Okay, those are part assembly document custom properties. There's also custom properties that'll say things like file location or file name or configuration name. Right, so all of this information can be put into a bill of materials. These are custom properties that are generated out of SolidWorks. They sort of fit into the back end of a SolidWorks part or assembly file. Okay, part or configuration specific custom properties, I'll talk about that in just a minute. And so again, we're using the custom properties to help us generate accurate BOMs. Okay, so this is the file properties tab inside of a SolidWorks file. Could be a part, a drawing, or an assembly, any one of those. And just to the right of it, where it says custom up there, there is configuration specific. So if you have, let's say you work with a part and you have it in a lot of different sizes. So it makes it much easier to create a bunch of configurations than it would to generate a whole bunch of individual parts. So under the configuration specific tab, you can have every configuration have a different part number, have a different description. So something to be to point out for creating custom properties in SolidWorks. So this is just sort of my example. I threw in some custom properties. All those fields are things that are either default SolidWorks custom properties, or you can manually type in anything you like. So you can create custom properties as necessary. All right, so here's the major advantage. All that information that's in the custom property on the back end of the part is then pushed into a bill of materials as well as the title block for the drawing, the manufacturing drawing that you create. So there's no need to generate this in two separate places. You create it in the part side, and then it will push those over. Okay? And to make your life even easier for custom properties, SolidWorks has the Property Tab Builder. This is a way for you to say, all right, I know which set of custom properties I need. I don't want my guys to have to go into the file properties every time. This can just pop up as part of the task pane. You can kind of see I have it highlighted over here, the task pane. Right over here. Okay, so you choose that tab on the task pane. It pops open the Property Tab Builder. You fill out that information, then click on Apply, and now your part file has all the custom properties ready to go. Okay. So, and the dialog that's there in the center, that's what it looks like when you want to generate what the box on the right looks like. So the Property Tab Builder, and that's located in the Start menu under SolidWorks Tools. Okay, all right, so that is the sort of the basis of my presentation, the challenges and the best practices. This is the tool. This is SolidWorks Task Scheduler. Basically this is for batch file processing. So if you want to convert all of your 2012 files to 2013, you can do this with Task Scheduler. If you want to create a whole set of e-drawings, you don't want to manually go in and say save e-drawing. You can use the Task Scheduler to generate all of the files that you want. You can change file formats. I could go from a SolidWorks drawing to a AutoCAD DXF. You can do a batch process like that. I can print out files. I can render files. And also very cool for 2013, they now have what's called the Network Monitor. What the Network Monitor allows you to do is you install that on any machine that's on your network, and you can borrow the computer processors. So if I'm doing a really large render and nobody's using that computer, why not I just take advantage of that and sort of create your own render farm in your own company. So that's brand new for 2013. And it's not just for rendering, it's for anything that you can do in the Task Scheduler you can borrow a computer processor for. Okay. All right, so we got through the hard parts, the sort of ways that I had to get by with file management. Now we're going to talk about the advantages of using a PDM software. A lot of this stuff is going to be automated for you, so you don't have to be concerned with your bills of materials, your revisions, your backup, your part numbering. PDM is going to handle that for you. There's improved search and sort functionality. You can combine multiple databases with the PDM software. You can share, that's supposed to say protect, not product. Share, protect, and keep a history of data with the Vault. So the cool thing there is that every time I save a file and check it back into the Vault, I have that at that position, whether I'm creating a revision or not. I've now created a sort of a history of my part file in different save processes. Okay, I can use existing custom property information. So we spent all that time creating custom properties on our parts and our drawings. Well, now I can use that inside my PDM software. I can also track workflows. So if you have a process in place where person A needs to sign off on it and then person B needs to sign off on it, and you need to see where in your workflow your parts or drawings are at, then you can do that with PDM software. And then also a great thing to point out is that packages of SolidWorks Pro and Premium, they come with Worker PDM. It has its place. It's good for about 5 people. But when you grow out of that, then you can easily get yourself into a enterprise PDM or such other software. So, sort of the advantages there, and that's pretty much it. So thanks everybody for coming. I'd just like to point out real quick that all of the presentations that my company has constructed, as well as this one, is located at this web address. So www.cati.com/SWW2013. The last time I gave this presentation, at the end there were a lot of questions that people wanted to know about EPDM, and I'm not the EPDM expert, so I brought my EPDM coworker with me. So this is Ryan. So he will happily help you guys out if you have any EPDM questions. So at this time, I'm not sure what time it is. What time are we at? 2:05? Okay. So 35 minutes. That was faster than last time. So I will take questions. So I think the gentleman in the back, yes. Okay, so let me get your question straight.
On your part,
Right.
Rev A,
Yep.
you go make a drawing.
Yep.
It's a Rev A, but you have a typo on your drawing. Now, you roll a revision just on the drawing, or you both, or do you not roll a revision?
At my company, when there was a typo on the drawing, we did not create a new revision. We spoke with our vendors. We said, here's what happened. That's not what we meant to have happen. Unfortunately, that's what did happen. So we would then issue them out a new e-drawing that was corrected. So.
In theory, you always try to make your drawing match your part, right? As part of the revision?
Absolutely. So what we're doing is we're creating a e-drawing just for the drawing file. We're not saving every part at my company. So if it came to the point where we needed to go back in time, then we would have to recreate the part. So that didn't happen very often, but that's the way we would handle it.
Development in SolidWorks, do you consider that a part, or just a assembly?
When we work with weldments, we do multi-body part files. So are you talking about creating like a cut list?
And it's a part because it's welded together, you can't take it apart.
Right. Yes, no. In a bill of materials, one part number. And then you can create a document to show how the pieces get welded together.
Right, but it wouldn't be considered an assembly with a bunch of parts, right?
It depends on if you're making it in-house or if you're making it at a vendor. If you're making it in-house and you're buying the pieces individually, then it would be individual part numbers. But if you're just getting it all as one chunk, then you don't care about the other parts. Okay. So, yes. With Workgroup PDM, I believe it is when you install SolidWorks on the disk, you can access the install for Workgroup PDM. Is that correct? You have a microphone?
Yeah, if you're going to be doing Workgroup with your SolidWorks installation, when you go in there, there's a section for server-side tools, and there will include the admin tool for Workgroup. And from there, you could set that up. Now, one interesting thing to point out about Workgroup, it's one license per Pro and the other license, Premium.
Premium, yes.
So if you want additional viewers, that's additional licensing.
We've been using SolidWorks for about 4 years, and we've just been managing our files on our regular Windows. We're about to move into Workgroup PDM. Do you have any recommendations for setting up some structure to how to bring those files in? Somebody organizes files the way it's logical. We have an area where we're trying to get ready for the PDM. We call it the SolidWorks vault, although it's not really yet our vault. We put like all the fasteners in there, and we're starting to some stuff directories in there for some other parts. But before we really go into it, I'm looking for some advice on basic structure so that when we go into PDM, we can track things in from wherever they are to where they should be.
Well, when you're using Workgroup, they have their own structure that they create that's based on a project, is what they call it inside the software. So whenever you check something in to Workgroup, it's going to grab that file and add it to the vault. And that's going to be a location somewhere on a server, more than likely, depending on how you have it set up. So if you want to duplicate that existing structure, when you check those files in for the first time, you have the option to maintain that same structure or have a brand new structure. So if you have a current structure that you want to copy, you would have that set up inside a Workgroup in order for when you check them in and check them out that they get added appropriately. So ultimately what we're doing is we're moving it into a PDM vault, which is going to be separate from your current network location. So we can take that same philosophy that you developed and move it, or we can have a new scheme developed when you move those files into Workgroup. So with Workgroup, you don't have quite as much flexibility with the structure as you do with maybe a more scalable solution. But if you want to have it look like it does now in your current Explorer setup, we can duplicate that inside a Workgroup. So
Guides or stuff like that?
There are best practices guides for Workgroup that are provided by SolidWorks that are available through the portal. So if you have access to the customer portal, you could get to them there. And also if you work with your reseller, they should be able to get some information for you as well.
Any yes?
I did that, if nothing else would be a question regarding cloud file sharing services like Dropbox.
Okay.
Dropbox is awesome, like really good mobile apps. The one just launched on Saturday that gives you for free 50 gigs. And it's pretty much a clone of Dropbox. It's got a really slick interface that works really great. So if you need more space than the 2 gigs that Dropbox can do. It wants you to review it. So it's mega.co.nz. And it works exactly like Dropbox on mobile apps. It's used for 50 gigs for free.
Cool. So mega. Mega.co.nz is a 50 gigabyte solution that's similar to Dropbox. So thank you. Appreciate that. mega.co.nz. Oh yeah, the mega upload guy, yeah.
The .com guy.
Yeah, the .com dude. Right. Yes. A cloud-based system that offers check-in and check-outs. Right, you have a vault. Mm-hmm. Right. If there is, I'm not aware of it. Let's see. Ryan, are you familiar with a cloud-based check-in, check-out system? I don't believe there is one.
I don't know that there's an entry-level version like that. There are certainly very high-end enterprise versions that do cloud storage, like Innovia. But I am not aware of a off-the-shelf cloud storage that does that.